This story begins inside a library, where a man can be seen studying something. His name was Ethan Lee, and his attention was shifted when a man came in and asked how long he had been here since he came, and Ethan Lee stated that it had been 15 years. So the old man revealed that his time had come, and upon hearing it, Ethan Lee was stunned as he asked, "What does he mean about it?" Suddenly, Ethan Lee could hear voices in his mind, which made him confused. So the old man asked if he had heard the sounds, and Ethan Lee inquired about the origin of the noise. But the old man asked if he remembered what happened 15 years ago, when he first entered this space as a child, and he described Ethan Lee's eyes as burning with determination. But then, Ethan Lee kneeled at the old man as he begged to find an answer. Ever since that day, Ethan Lee has been devoted to studying criminology, psychology, physics, physiology, chemistry, and other related fields. For 15 years, all too looking for the answer, so the old man asked if the answer he craved for was in this space, and Ethan Lee was confused about it. As he was going to say it, the old man asked if they could shake hands. By looking at it, Ethan Lee was left speechless and decided to shake his hands. The old man felt warmth on his hands and advised him that in his journey, he would constantly come face to face with a monster within himself. Perhaps he would lose your way, stumble, and collapse in the dark. Thus, he reminded him not to forget the warmth that still flows through his hands like this, and the old man ordered his eyes to open, causing him to be startled. His eyes glared, telling him that the answer he sought wasn't here. He must venture into the world to find the true answer. Suddenly, an electric shock struck him, and the voices from earlier, asking if he was awake, and the other voice said that his pulse and breathing were returning to the normal range. Suddenly, a voice of his dad had spoke up and told him to open his eyes, and it appeared that his eyes were filled with blood, causing him to be awake, as he was gasping for air. It turns out that Ethan Lee had been confined in the hospital, while the nurses were surprised that Ethan Lee had already opened his eyes, and Ethan Lee wondered where he was. But then a sharp pain he just felt, and he quickly raised his hands and found out that he had a dextrose attached to his hands, and he was surprised that he was seeing a child's arm. So he looked at the reflection of the vital signs monitor, and he was more confused. As far as he knew, it's been so long since he became an adult, and earlier he was with the old man. But then he recalled the face of his deceased father looking at him. But then, Ethan Lee slapped his face as he didn't know which one was the reality. Then a doctor suddenly came in and asked if he was awake, causing Ethan Lee's attention to be shifted, and the nurses confirmed that he was indeed awake. So the doctor put the light on his eyes to check, and the doctor was relieved that Ethan Lee had already woken up, as he asked if he felt dizzy of nausea, and Ethan Lee told him that he was all right, but out of his curiosity, he asked the doctor how long he had been in the hospital. Then the doctor told him that he'd been in a coma for over a month, and Ethan Lee was in disbelief after hearing it. So he told the doctor that he wasn't on a ventilator means his body was functioning properly. So the doctor came closer and asked if he was interested in medicine, which shocked Ethan Lee. Even though he was doubting, and told the doctor that he was interested, so the doctor smiled and asked if he was curious about what state he was in while he was asleep, which Ethan Lee agreed, and the doctor told him that he was also curious. So the doctor stated that while Ethan Lee was in a coma, his brainwaves followed a very specific pattern each day for a month, although there were slight changes in the overall trend. In the first 10 days, there were still some theta waves, but mostly beta waves appeared, and in the final 10 days, alpha waves started to dominate, showing stabilization. And the doctor asked if he could tell him what this means, so Ethan Lee explained that the FM theta waves from the first 10 days, brainwaves that appear when a growing child imagines and creates freely. The beta waves of the next 10 days appear when adolescents study for exams, engaging in logical reasoning and problem solving. Finally, the alpha waves of the last 10 days are brain waves that maximize efficiency when you're an adult. Then Ethan Lee realized something, as he recalled the time when the old man asked how long he'd been here. He told him it was exactly 15 years. He compared it to a child growing into an adult, realizing that his brainwaves evolved similarly, and 1 month felt like 15 years. Upon hearing it, the doctor laughed due to amusement, as he was confused how a kid could know all of this. Hence, the nurses told the doctor to calm down as he was scaring the other patients. A little while later, at the men's restroom, Ethan Lee was looking at his face in the mirror, as he was glad that he had finally remembered how he ended up in a coma. One snowy night, Ethan Lee's face was full of bruises, and all of a sudden, his dad grabbed him by the jacket and told him to get in, and Ethan Lee told his dad not to drive because he was drunk, but his dad didn't care and told him to shut up. After that, his dad quickly drove the car recklessly, and Ethan Lee warned his dad to drive slowly since the roads were slippery, but his dad got annoyed and told him to shut his mouth. Thus his dad reminded Ethan Lee to tell the cops that the guy is who killed his mom, and Ethan Lee just looked at him, but then Ethan Lee shouted and told his dad to look out, and it turns out a man was crossing on the streets causing his dad to turn around. Since the road was slippery, they were headed on stairs, where the car couldn't control its movements, and it was directly struck on the wall causing it to crash badly. The shattered glass had scattered on the ground, and blood was dripping, and Ethan Lee's father was not responding anymore. In the end, that accident killed his father, and Ethan Lee wondered if those memories from the month he was in a coma were just a dream. As he was thinking, a voice suddenly spoke up, which he felt it depressing, as he told the caller the doctors are spouting crap about his condition, and it said that his amygdala is small and his average heart rate is low, and the man wasn't sure about it, as he thought that doctors are trying to milk money with all tests, and he wanted to get discharged right now. Thus, he told his friend to grab his stuff and pick him up in a car, and he told him not to be late. Meanwhile, Ethan Lee knew that a small amygdala would cause a low heart rate and a tendency to control others, so he recalled what the old man said about the amygdala governing empathy, guilt, and conscience, which was part of the brain that controls emotions. So the old man asked, what does it mean if the amygdala is small? And Ethan Lee explained it means there was a possibility the person lacks emotions compared to the average person. And the old man asked what happened if their average heart rate is low, so Ethan Lee explained that it could indicate they didn't easily feel fear. In such cases, they may suffer from apathy or lethargy due to a dull, monotonous life, and that the reason why they crave intense stimulation, which the old man agreed, that it would make their heart race, was murder. The door suddenly opened, and Ethan Lee was patiently waiting for him. Then the man was surprised upon seeing an alone kid at the toilet. So the man asked Ethan Lee if he was okay for him to be walking around already, but Ethan Lee remained silent, and the man explained that they were in the same hospital room, and he knew that Ethan Lee was kind of famous right now, as he was the kid who woke up a coma after a month while he puffs his cigarette. So Ethan Lee asked about what happened to his hands. But before he answered, his eyes were rolling, and his expression changed as he explained that it was just cut from a knife, and it was nothing serious about it. Thus, Ethan Lee wished that his wound would heal quickly, and the man was overwhelmed by it, as he thanked Ethan Lee, and he congratulated him on waking up, as he jokingly told him that he would gift him a cigarette, but he chuckled and said it was the last one he had. Then he quickly threw the cigarette in the trash can and bid farewell to Ethan Lee, and told him to finish his business as he slammed the door aggressively. A little while later, at the nurse station, a nurse could be seen checking on the paper. Then Ethan Lee came closer and called her, asking if he could borrow her phone to search for something, and the nurse happily handed her phone as she knew that Ethan Lee was curious about how much the world had changed in a month, which Ethan Lee thanked her, and Ethan Lee quickly searched on something, and to his surprise, he found the article, and it said that a random stabbing was targeting a woman. Around 10:10 p.m. 3 days ago, a woman in her 20s was attacked in an alley in the Jangai district. So Ethan Lee imagines the scenario where a woman who was walking alone suddenly stabbed from the right abdomen to under the left chest, and the culprit must have left-handed, but he recalled the man earlier, where he had cut on his left finger, and he was 3 days locked hospital as Ethan Lee it was 3 days ago, and if he go what he learned in the dream, the chance that this man has recently committed murder or attempted murder was 99%. Then Ethan Lee handed back the cell phone to the nurse, as he thanked her for letting him use her phone. Then Ethan Lee wondered if the things he learned in that dream would work in reality, as he was looking at the telephone station, while he was grabbing his pocket, and Ethan Lee decided that the remaining 1% would uncover it himself, and it appeared that he took a piece of a cigarette that the man had used earlier. So Ethan Lee entered the telephone station as he picked up the phone. Ethan Lee noticed why he couldn't help himself smile like that as she dialed the emergency hotline. Meanwhile, at the police station, someone just slammed the paper indicating the list of criminal offenders, and a man was scolding Sejun and asking if he wasn't ashamed that his junior was about to get promoted before him, and if he was just going to watch this kind of insubordination. Still, Sejun remained silent, and his boss was mad about the performance record as he threw it in his face, and asked if he'd become a detective to go on vacation, as he warned him that if he didn't improve his score this time, he wouldn't be able to cover him anymore. Sejun couldn't do anything but accept it. Shortly after, Sejun sat down on his chair with a heavy feeling, as he scratched his head due to annoyance. Suddenly, the telephone rang, which irritated him more, so he answered as he introduced himself as a detective division, and on the line was Ethan Lee, asking if he remembered the attempted murder case targeting a woman happened 3 days ago, which Sejun was confused about what he just said, and Ethan Lee named the suspect as Jo Jonghwan in room 1407 at Daehan University Hospital. But Sejun was not happy and asked who he was. And Ethan Lee made this voice sound mature. They'll only think it's some kid just past puberty. And Ethan Lee knew that no cop is going to move on something like this. And Ethan Lee decided to feed them details only the people involved would know to make it sound credible. So Ethan Lee clarified if they found the suspect's blood on the victim's clothes, which would alert Sejun, and Ethan Lee revealed it was cut from the knife slipping while stabbing and got onto the victim's clothes. The suspect has an injury on the left index finger, and he likely committed a similar crime in the same area before this. What happened before wasn't the final version. It was just warming up. Thus Ethan Lee revealed that there was a high possibility it would escalate into serial murder, causing Sejun to be alarmed, while Ethan Lee knew that he had already thrown the bait, and they couldn't ignore it since they're still on the line. So Sejun tried to talk about it, but Ethan Lee interrupted him that he had the cigarette but that Jonghwan smoked, as he compared the DNA with the blood on the victim's clothes, and that would be solid evidence. So Ethan Lee warned him that Jonghwan was being discharged today, and if he didn't catch Jonghwan today, it would be hard to catch him at all. Thus, Ethan Lee encouraged Sejun not to miss this chance, since it would be a perfect moment to catch a future serial killer, and Sejun was left speechless, and Ethan Lee quickly hung up the call while a smile was put on his face. Meanwhile, Sejun was still in disbelief as he looked at the telephone, but then his fellow detective came and asked if he hadn't eaten yet, as he teased him that he had been scolded by the captain earlier. Thus Sejun asked if the DNA had come back on that attempted robbery murder of the woman, and his fellow detective was confused and told him that he wasn't sure about it and maybe it would come today. Upon hearing it, Sejun was thinking whether he should pursue it or not. So he stood up and told his fellow detective that he had already requested the rookie to check at the forensics lab, and he would come with him. Feeling confused, his fellow detective asked where are they going, but Sejun walked straight away, causing him to chase him. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Ethan Lee was outside waiting for them to arrive. Not long after, a car arrived, and Sejun quickly stepped outside of the car as he walked straight away, while his fellow detective was still chasing him as they entered. Ethan Lee was behind them as he smiled that his plan had worked. They went to the nurse's station, and Sejun introduced himself as a police officer as he asked if there was a patient named Jonghwan in room 1407, and the nurse asked what are they concerns on him. So Sejun explained that they've got a report that Jonghwan is the suspect in the attempted murder 3 days ago. Upon hearing it, the nurse was shocked, and she quickly told them to wait and excused herself. Suddenly, a voice spoke up, calling Sejun, causing his attention to shift, and to his surprise, it was Ethan Lee showing him the cigarette butt. So Sejun gently grabbed it and asked where he got it. So Ethan Lee explained it came from a guy earlier and ordered him to give it to the police if they came, and Sejun asked where the guy was right now, and Ethan Lee pointed at the waiting area. So Sejun asked if he remembered where the guy went, and Ethan Lee denied as he didn't know where he was. All of a sudden, a man came in and asked Sejun if he was looking for Jonghwan, as he introduced himself as the attending doctor of Jonghwan. Meanwhile, in room 1407, inside was Jonghwan, as he had already put on his sweater and packed his things, and he closed his sweater and put his cap on his head. Then he looked at his wounded hand, as he recalled that he followed a woman in the middle of the night, and he was holding a knife. Then Jonghwan rushed closer to the woman, causing the woman to turn around. Thus Jonghwan stabbed her in the stomach, as blood started to drip, but Jonghwan wasn't satisfied at all, as he wished that if he could go in just a bit deeper. On the other side, Sejun and his fellow detective were following the doctor, and his fellow detective addressed his concerns that it was too risky to make an emergency arrest based on that tip, as they weren't sure if the DNA on the cigarette but matched the blood stains, and warned Sejun if they didn't get enough evidence within 48 hours, they would fall apart completely, and the captain's already on the edge these days. And Sejun remained silent, as he recalled what the captain said to him earlier that he couldn't cover him anymore if he failed his performance score this time. But Sejun decided to pursue it and told his fellow detective that they would work towards it, as he assured that he would take all the responsibility for it. Then they arrived at room 1407, Then they quickly entered the room, and they caught the attention of the people inside the room, and the doctor was confused that Jonghwan's bed was already empty, as he asked where he had gone, and the patient next to him told the doctor that Jonghwan just left with his bag, and said that he was being discharged, which the doctor got surprised that Jonghwan didn't even do the discharge paperwork yet. Upon hearing it, Sejun and his fellow detective looked at each other, as they knew it was bad, so Sejun quickly rushed out of the room. Meanwhile, Jonghwan was calling his friend, and asked if he had brought what he had just told him, and told him to wait as he clarified if his car was a white Starex, and the caller agreed, so Jonghwan hung up the call as he felt excited about his plan. As he was heading out, a voice spoke up and asked if he meant to leave without paying his hospital bill, which made Jonghwan stop and turn around. Thus, he was stunned that it was Ethan Lee, as he was smiling at him, and Jonghwan was in relief, as he knew it was the kid, so Jonghwan asked who told him that he didn't pay, and what he was doing here, and Ethan Lee explained that he was looking for him, causing Jonghwan to be curious about it, so Ethan Lee told him that there was one thing he wanted to ask him. Thus he asked him about how he felt that time when he shoved the knife into the woman's abdomen, which made Jonghwan to be stunned for a second, full of confusions, but Jonghwan notices that Ethan Lee was not an ordinary kid as he based it on his eyes, so moved closer to him and clarified if he wanted to know what it felt like. As he described it, a sharp vibration he would feel in his finger when the dull bone catches between the flesh, and Jonghwan smirked after sharing it, but Ethan Lee told him to cut it out, causing him to be surprised, as he revealed that Jonghwan felt it like were something special because he stabbed someone, but in really he didn't even have the guts to face them, so he attacks from behind, and got in a car crash running away from a woman Jonghwan were scared of, as Jonghwan recalled the time he runs out of the scene and got hit by the car. But then Jonghwan grabbed Ethan Lee's shirt as he warned him not to mess with him, but Ethan Lee just laughed at his face, which made Jonghwan go mad, as he swung his left hand and told Ethan Lee that he didn't know how to be scared of adults, as he would like being beaten up, and Ethan Lee's eyes got wide upon seeing it, but before Jonghwan's hands got on Ethan Lee's face, someone quickly grabbed his hands, stopping him from slapping Ethan Lee. It turns out it was Sejun who held his hand, and Sejun noticed the bandaged wound on the left index finger, as he recalled what the caller said that the perpetrator had a wound on his left index finger, and Jonghwan explained that Ethan Lee was adorable, but Sejun asked if he was Jonghwan, to which Jonghwan reacted and asked if he knew him. Then Sejun pulled out his ID and told him that he was under emergency arrest right now, and Jonghwan started to panic and asked why he was picked for this, but Sejun told him that he had the right to remain silent, and he could appoint a lawyer, and Jonghwan knew that he was indeed in trouble. So he quickly stood up and bumped Sejun so hard, causing him to lose his balance and fell on the ground, and Jonghwan quickly rushed out of the scene, and Sejun told his fellow detective to catch him. On the other side, Ethan Lee was aware that Jonghwan was trying to escape, so he stepped on his feet to block Jonghwan's feet, and not long after, Ethan Lee managed to kick his feet, preventing him from escaping. Because of that, Jonghwan lost his balance, causing him to trip and fall. So he managed to suppress Jonghwan, while he was demanding to let him go because he was a patient. As they were walking out of the hospital, Jonghwan was still complaining to them, which Sejun, fellow detective, got annoyed and told him to shut up. Then Sejun noticed Ethan Lee behind them, so he decided to stop and told his fellow detective to put Jonghwan in the car first, assuring him that he would follow after, and his fellow detective asked where he was going, but Sejun walked straight away. Then Sejun walked closer to Ethan Lee and asked if he remembered him from earlier, and Ethan Lee agreed that he remembered him. So Sejun showed the cigarette but to him and asked if the older boy who gave him this said anything else about it. All of a sudden, the doctor interrupted Sejun and asked what the matter was with it, as he introduced himself as Ethan Lee's patient's attending physician, and Sejun explained that they were police who came based on a tip, and Ethan Lee seems to have met the informant, as they would like to ask a few questions, and the doctor revealed that Ethan Lee just woke up from a coma recently, that he was emotionally unstable. But Ethan Lee called him, and the doctor asked what does he want, so Ethan Lee explained that he was indeed okay. This he called Sejun as he started to confess that the older boy he told him that Jonghwan had a small amygdala and low heart rate, and he had antisocial personality disorder tendencies that try to control other, and Jonghwan was currently depressed, and Sejun clarified if he was indeed depressed, which Ethan Lee agreed, as he explained that it was an early characteristic of serial killers. depression experienced after the first murder or attempted murder. When they take such risks and commit acts, but feel less satisfied than expected or even feel bad, and that's the depression sets in. The problem is they try to overcome this depression with the next crime, so the next crime might not end as just an attempt, and if the next crime succeeds, they commit another crime, and repeating this way, before they become a serial killer. Upon hearing it, Sejun was shocked after hearing those words coming from a child's mouth, and Ethan Lee told him that if they had left Jonghwan alone, there would surely have been another victim. So Sejun asked if that older boy said that to him, which Ethan Lee confirmed. But the doctor told Ethan Lee that he needs to rest now, as he asked Ethan Lee if they could go back to his room. Then a nurse came in, and the doctor ordered her to take Ethan Lee to his room, and the nurse agreed. But then Sejun asked the doctor if Ethan Lee's parents were in the police force, and the doctor denied that his parents had passed away, and they bid farewell to each other. But Sejun's mind wasn't at ease as he started to wonder if it was possible to remember what a passing person said and speak so clearly, and no matter he look at it, Sejun felt something on Ethan Lee, as he described him as a profiler. A few days later, at Daehan University Hospital, the news reported that the perpetrator of the woman's attempted murder case that occurred in Jiangdong recently has been caught. The perpetrator is a man in his 20s, surnamed Zhou, who lives in the same neighborhood, and police believe Zhou has committed more crimes as they are focusing their investigation on crimes targeting women around Jiangdong. Meanwhile, Ethan Lee thought what he learned in the coma state had worked in reality as well, as he wondered if that wasn't just a simple dream. Suddenly, Ethan Lee notices that the little girl is staring at him, and Ethan Lee realizes that she was staring at the bag full of snacks that he was holding. So Ethan Lee offered it to her, and she quickly accepted his offer. Then Ethan Lee gave it all to her, and the girl was surprised as she joyfully peeled the lollipop, and Ethan Lee was glad as he didn't know how to handle all the snacks that the nurses gave him. Then the girl thanked him as she called her Appa. Upon hearing it, Ethan Lee was shocked as he saw a blurry vision of a little girl calling him the same name, causing him to get terrified, as he recalled being in a building where blood had been scattered. On the ground was his mom, who'd been injured as tears streamed down her face. Then she was speaking something, and a man stepped out of the car as he was smiling at her. Meanwhile, Ethan Lee was confused as he wondered if it was part of a memory or delirium, and delirium meant hallucinations or memory disorders. But Ethan Lee was confused if it was a simple delirium, as he felt heart-crushing emotion, and he started to wonder if his mom had already died. Then a voice suddenly spoke up as he asked Ethan Lee if he didn't know, and it turned out to be a wolf as he told Ethan Lee that it was all because of him. All of a sudden, the nurse came closer to Ethan Lee as she asked if something had happened to him since he wasn't answering, and Ethan Lee told her not to worry as he asked what it was all about. So the nurse told Ethan Lee that she had somewhere to go with him, and Ethan Lee asked where it was, and she told Ethan Lee that Professor Kim wants to meet him, as she clarified if it was okay for him, which Ethan Lee agreed. Then he looked at himself in the mirror, feeling a growing sense of doubt. The nurse called Ethan Lee out and told him to follow her, so he quickly chased after her. Meanwhile, the two nurses on the notice, Ethan Lee and the short-haired nurse, were in disbelief that Ethan Lee was being discharged today. The other yellow-haired nurse agreed, as she felt like time flew so fast. Still, the yellow-haired nurse stated that she was shocked when she first met Ethan Lee, as they knew that Ethan Lee had the sign of being beaten rather than injuries from the accident, as she suspected that Ethan Lee was an abused child. She stated that Ethan Lee's dad was thinking of taking him out while drunk and driving, as she suspected that Ethan Lee's dad was trying to kill them together, but luckily for Ethan Lee, he survived because he was wearing a seatbelt. The yellow-haired nurse revealed that Ethan Lee's mom had passed away due to a traffic accident about half a year ago, before Ethan Lee's accident, as she felt pity for Ethan Lee. So the short-haired nurse asked what would happen to Ethan Lee after discharge, and the yellow-haired nurse asked if she didn't notice that no one was visiting him during the hospitalization, and he might go to an institution or an orphanage, but she revealed that Professor Kim is adopting him, which surprised the short-haired nurse. Thus yellow-haired nurse explained that this was the reason why Professor Kim called Ethan Lee right now, since Professor Kim is single and has accumulated a lot of wealth, and for Ethan Lee, it was a mega jackpot for him, and the short-haired nurse was jealous that Ethan Lee had switched to a golden spoon for real. Meanwhile, the nurse and Ethan Lee had already arrived at Professor Kim's room as she knocked on the door and told Professor Kim that she brought Ethan Lee with her, and Professor Kim told them to come in. On the other side of the city, a girl named Bora could be seen feeding the cat. She gently rubbed the cat's back, and the cat started to play with her, which she found it adorable, as she quickly pulled out her phone and took a picture of the cat. But then an unknown man called her out, causing her attention to turn to where the voice came. So Bora seemed to know this man as she greeted him, and the unknown man complimented that she was a kind person for feeding a stray cat. Thus he asked where her parents at. So Bora told him that his dad went to work and her mom went to the market. Upon hearing it, the man's expression changed as he planned something, and the unknown man knew that no one was passing by, as he could finish it quickly, and he wondered if he should do it right now. Thus, his face says it all. The unknown man clarified if the cat's name was Cream, and Bora agreed as she proudly stated that she named that cat. Thus, the unknown man told her that Cream was lucky to have her. So he told Bora that he had a baby kitten inside his house, and he asked if she could raise it. Upon hearing it, Bora was excited and clarified if she could take it, which the man agreed and reminded her that it must be a secret that he gave it to her, and Bora joyfully agreed to it. So they started to walk into the unknown man's house, and Bora advised him that the baby kittens were weak, as he needed to warm them up too, and the unknown man asked if a baby kitten could eat cat food, which Bora told him that he could soak it in water and give it. Meanwhile, at the Daehan University Hospital, in the office of Professor Kim, inside was Ethan Lee was overwhelmed by the drinks that Professor Kim prepared for him. Then Professor Kim chuckled as he didn't know what drink he would like, and he asked Ethan Lee how his condition was, to which Ethan Lee stated that he was all good, and Professor Kim congratulated him for being discharged today, as he asked if he had any plans for the future, but Ethan Lee just smiled at him. Then Professor Kim stated that he had something important to news with him, and he shared that he had many spare rooms at his house, as he invited him to come live at his house and offered him to become his son and assured him that he would provide him with everything he wanted. Upon hearing it, Ethan Lee believed it was a good proposal, as he knew that once he was discharged, since he was an orphan, he wouldn't be given any legal authority, so economic activities and living alone would be practically impossible. So Ethan Lee knew that if he accepted this proposal would be the wise choice for him, but Ethan Lee kept seeing something, and it turned out it be his deceased dad, as he wished that he couldn't see it. While his dad blamed him for what happened to him, and told him that if Ethan Lee thinks he could live comfortably with his legs stretched out. While Ethan Lee believed it was a hallucination, a confusion of his memories that appeared during the brain activation process after waking from a long coma, but Ethan Lee wondered if it was a hallucination, as he was curious about what actually happened that he couldn't remember. But then, Professor Kim spoke up and asked if he would accept to live together with him, but Ethan Lee stated that he had a request, and Professor Kim agreed to it, so Ethan Lee asked if he could become his legal guardian. Upon hearing it, Professor Kim was surprised and asked if he was serious about it. Then Ethan Lee appreciated Professor Kim's proposal that he could become his adopted son, as he knew he could probably live a much happier life than before. So Ethan Lee revealed that he had something he must do once he got home, as he needed to solve some homework. And Professor Kim asked what he meant by homework, and Ethan Lee explained it was all about the deaths of his parents, as he knew they were not simple accident at all, causing Professor Kim to be alarmed. So he asked if he could clarify about it, as he was concerned about his decision. But Ethan Lee hoped to continue his relationship with him. Thus, he insisted that if he lived with him without solving that homework first, it might cause him trouble. While Ethan Lee's dad chuckled that Ethan Lee was starting to sense what kind of person he was, but then Ethan Lee quickly stood up and bowed to Professor Kim as he begged him, and to his thoughts, that if he was adopted by Professor Kim, he needed to attend school and have restrictions on activities, but rejecting the proposal and living in society as a minor is impossible, as he didn't had but to choose Professor Kim as to be his legal guardian. Meanwhile, Professor Kim wondered if the kids at this age usually think about these things, as he didn't know how to persuade a kid like Ethan Lee, who speaks so maturely. So he called Ethan Lee and explained that no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't agree to sending him home alone. But Professor Kim stated that Ethan Lee was different from the other kids, as he wanted to trust him once, and decided to become his legal guardian. But Ethan Lee could react. Professor Kim stated that he had a condition, as he handed a phone and told him to take it, and he had to contact him every day about how he was doing. Thus Professor Kim chuckled as he prepared this to be his discharge gift. So he ordered Ethan Lee to look at the back of the phone, and to his surprise it was a card, and Professor Kim stated that he would deposit a 300,000 won there every month, and Ethan Lee was overwhelmed by it. but Professor Kim insisted to accept it, as he explained that he wanted to cherish this relationship with him, and hoped that Ethan Lee wouldn't think that he was alone and would trust and rely on him anytime. So Professor Kim jokingly stated that he didn't want him to contact him regularly, and if he felt burdensome, make sure to pay it back later with interest, and Ethan Lee quickly thanked him as he assured him that he would pay him back. Then Professor Kim asked if they could shake hands, causing him to be stunned as they shake their hands. Professor Kim felt warm on his hands, which he was surprised as he recalled the same scenario with the old man, saying that he felt the warmth of his hands. So Professor Kim told him not to skip meals and stay healthy. A little while later, Ethan Lee had already arrived at his town as he looked at the snacks that the nurses gave him as they congratulated him for being discharged. But Ethan Lee started craving a strong espresso. When all of a sudden, Bora's mom panicked, as she was calling Bora anywhere. Then her mom stopped as he saw Ethan Lee in the waiting shed, and quickly rushed and asked if he was Ethan Lee, to which Ethan Lee agreed, and Bora's mom anxiously asked if he had seen Bora, and upon hearing Bora's name, Ethan Lee started to remember something. He recalled the time that Bora's mom handed him a bowl of hot rice, asking him if he was indeed hungry, and Ethan Lee's face was full of bruises, so she hurried him to eat it before it got cold. Bora's mom got mad that Ethan Lee's father beats him every single day, that he shouldn't let Ethan Lee starve, as she felt worried for Ethan Lee that he had been hungry for a long time. Beside Ethan Lee was Bora, who handed him a fried potato on his spoon, as she told him to eat that too, and Ethan Lee thanked her. Thus Bora showed the sweetest smile on her face. Then Ethan Lee already remembered Bora, but Ethan Lee confusedly asked if Bora's mother was looking for her right now, which confused Bora's mother, and Ethan Lee quickly asked when she would go out and for what. So she explained that around 4:30, as Bora went out briefly and fed Cream, which Ethan Lee asked who Cream was. Thus Bora's mother explained that it was a stray cat that she adores more, and Ethan Lee asked where Bora fed it, or did she find the cat to give the food directly. So her mother explained that Bora fed Cream in front of their house, and Cream would come every day, and when the time she called Bora to get in, Bora would come right after. So Ethan Lee asked if Bora hadn't answered her phone, and Bora's mother stated that her phone had turned off. Upon hearing it, Ethan Lee knew that Bora would have her phone with her like a part of her body these days, since kids need to take cat photos and share them with friends, as he realized that this wasn't normal at all. Then Bora's mother stated that she needed to go look for Bora now, but Ethan Lee grabbed her sweater, as he suggested her to report it to the police first, causing her mom to be surprised. So Ethan Lee explained that Bora, who usually comes right back when called, but she hasn't come back even after an hour, hasn't come back even after an hour has passed, and her phone is turned off as well. But Bora's mom doubted that reporting her a missing seems not okay at all. But Ethan Lee stated that Bora might have been kidnapped, as he warned him that there isn't much time left. Since kidnapping cases, the murder probability is 75% within 3 hours, which Bora's mom was stunned upon hearing murder. So Ethan Lee told her that time is very important, as he asked her to report it first, and they could search around together. Even though she was shaking, she dialed the emergency hotline and reported that her daughter had gone out and hadn't come back, while police officer was surprised as he told her to calm down and asked how old she was, and she told the police that she was 9 years old and her name was Young Bora. But the police suspected that Bora might gone to play with her friends, as he asked if she contacted her friends' houses. But Bora's mom insisted that Bora went out just to feed the cat, and her phone was turned off too, but the police told her to calm down and suggested her to wait a bit more, since that age often forget to contact while playing. Upon hearing it, Ethan Lee was in disbelief, so he put the bag of snacks down as he pulled out his phone and called Professor Kim. Then he picked it up, and as he joyfully asked if he had gotten home already, and Ethan Lee hurriedly asked if he could get a request from him, as he explained that he thought that his friend has been kidnapped, that they even reported it to the police, but they wouldn't cooperate at all, which Professor Kim stunned. Thus Ethan Lee asked if they could help them, as he knew that Professor Kim had a lot of connections, and among them might be legal professionals or high-ranking civil servants. But then, Professor Kim told him that he understood and asked for the address in their place. After that, Ethan Lee knew that the probability was low, but Bora might have coincidentally met a friend today and was at their place. Bora's phone battery might have coincidentally died. But Ethan Lee started to consider that Bora's routine of feeding the cat at a fixed time of 4:30 every day, and the likelihood of her leaving home with insufficient phone battery is almost zero, and Ethan Lee noticed that this neighborhood has no CCTV and many blind spots where crimes could occur. So Ethan Lee understood that there was a possibility of a crime happening here, as he started to wonder where the crime place occurred. Then he caught the attention of Bora's house and determined to investigate there. So Ethan Lee decided to go up and check it out, as he told Bora's mom that he would look around at their house, which surprised her. As he was running, Ethan Lee recalled the time that Bora called him and asked why he didn't come to school today, and the teacher was worried about him. But Ethan Lee removed her hands from his sweater and told her just to leave him alone, and Bora was shocked upon seeing his face full of bruises again. Then, an awkward silence had come forward as Ethan Lee was trying to run out. Bora quickly pulled his jacket, which made Ethan Lee annoyed, but Bora invited him to come to her house, and Ethan Lee asked why. So Bora smiled and offered Ethan Lee to eat at their house, and Ethan Lee owed her so much that he wished Bora to stay alive. Meanwhile, inside the unknown man's house, the cat food had been scattered on the floor, as Bora's phone had been broken too, and Bora was lying on the floor unconsciously, while the unknown man seemed satisfied with what he had just done to Bora. A little while later, Ethan Lee arrived at Bora's house, so Ethan Lee started to look everywhere as he noticed that the road wasn't fit for a car for kidnapping, and that the perpetrator was a neighborhood resident living within walking distance. Then he looked at the cat's food bowl wasn't disturbed, and realized that Bora wasn't forcibly kidnapped, as there was a possibility that Bora followed voluntarily, someone who knows Bora. So Ethan Lee knew it was an acquaintance, with a high probability of being a single man living alone near Bora's house, because there shouldn't be any housemates to worry about when kidnapping Bora, and the man was likely unemployed. Worked irregular day jobs with a high probability of not having charm that would appeal to adult women. So Ethan Lee thought about a person whom he knew who fit these conditions, but then a memory came in, as a bottle of soju had been thrown towards his head and caused him to get injured, and it turned out to be his dad, as it was cursing him, asking how he could crawl back already, and ordered Ethan Lee to search the whole neighborhood to find who killed his mom. But even though he was wounded, Ethan Lee rushed outside as he obeyed his father's orders. While Ethan Lee's father picked the bottle with a cigarette, but says he called Ethan Lee a useless one and wished that Ethan Lee wasn't born, and as soon as the liquid touched his mouth, he quickly spat it out and threw the bottle on the ground. Then that was the reason why Ethan Lee's forehead had a scar, and because of his father's violence, he knew everything about who lived in the neighborhood, what they did for work, and who they were close to. So Ethan Lee started to think of an acquaintance, single, who'd work as a day laborer, someone without to appeal to adult women. Then, Ethan Lee remembered two people in their place, and among them was the one who lived closest to Bora's house, and his name was Juntae. Then Ethan Lee quickly rushed towards Juntae's house, as he knew that he lived alone, mainly doing manual labor, and enjoyed drinking, since he had seen him drinking with his father a few times. Thus, he arrived at a gate, as he wondered if it was Juntae's house, so he quickly tried to open it, but it was locked, and he knew something was wrong inside. The window was closed, and the cat food was scattered on the floor. Bora's phone had been broken, and Bora was lying on the ground, and then the unknown man, who was known to be Juntae, as he getting excited to do something to Bora, but before he got near her, Ethan Lee aggressively banged the door, causing him to stop. Meanwhile, Ethan Lee was desperately banging on the door since he knew it would irritate him, as he called Juntae's name repeatedly, and Ethan Lee used his child voice to lower his guard, as he wanted to get rid of the obstacle sooner. Not long after, Juntae got annoyed as he started cursing him, and Ethan Lee smirked as he knew that his plan was working. So he called his name again and introduced himself as Ethan Lee, which Juntae was surprised, stating that he hadn't seen him for a while and warned him to go home if he didn't want to get beaten. But Ethan Lee was persistent and told him that he had something important to tell him and he needed to come out for a moment, which made Juntae even more infuriated and ordered him to stay right there. While Ethan Lee was waiting, he knew that Juntae was hiding something behind that door, and not long after, Juntae showed up with his eyebrows crossed, and asked Ethan Lee where he got off acting up without knowing to fear adults. So Ethan Lee believed that Juntae was the perpetrator, but he would make sure about it by watching his reactions if he asked a question. Then, Ethan Lee stated that he was supposed to play with Bora, as he asked if she was still at his house. Upon hearing it, Juntae was stunned as he started to feel panic, and explained that Bora wasn't at his house. So Ethan Lee quickly checked his back and explained that he had seen Bora going with him, as he asked if Bora had gone home already. But then Juntae immediately asked what he had seen, and Ethan Lee got him as he 100% sure that he was the perpetrator. When all of a sudden, Juntae pulled his jacket and clarified if he saw him. Then Ethan Lee noticed something that even Juntae turned to Ethan Lee's direction. To their surprise, it was a police car that had arrived, and two policemen stepped outside of the car, and Juntae quickly let go of Ethan Lee as he awkwardly laughed. Then he explained that Bora told him not to tell anyone at his mouse that Bora was playing with a baby kitten right now, and Ethan Lee observes that Juntae's pupils were moving right side, indicating a behavior that appears when fabricating something that doesn't exist, as Ethan Lee clarified if it was true, and Juntae agreed, explaining that the kitten was cute as he asked if Ethan Lee want to see it too, and Ethan Lee clarified if it was okay with him. Without a doubt, Juntae quickly let him in. As soon as Ethan Lee steps in, Juntae puts a creepy smile on his face as he immediately locks the gate, and Ethan Lee sees it as well. Then Juntae told him to go in, that Bora would be very happy to see him. A little while ago, the police were roaming the place. The police asked his fellow companion if he had an idea about their captain's actions, as he was the one who used to say patrolling this neighborhood was a waste of time. Still, his companion suspected that he might be pressured from above, and the police clarified whether he was sure about it, to which he agreed and explained that he had been contacted by the headquarters. Upon hearing it, the police were stunned and asked what had happened, and he calmly stated that they just did what they were told to do. But then, the police told his fellow companion to stop there, and as they stopped, he reminded him to look around the neighborhood and go back for coffee, which he agreed to. On the other side, Juntae notices the police near them, his face turned pale and eyes wide, as he awkwardly laughs and let go of Ethan Lee. So he quickly explained that Bora ordered him not to tell anyone that she was at his house, that Bora was playing with a baby kitten right now, and Ethan Lee clarified if it was a baby kitten, which he agreed as he invited Ethan Lee if he wanted to come and see it as well, and Ethan Lee asked if he was sure about it, which Juntae immediately assisted him and confidently agrees. Meanwhile, Ethan Lee thoughts that he must go along with Juntae's thinking, as Bora's condition is the priority right now. As soon as he entered the place, with a smirk on his face, he quickly closed the gate and locked it. Juntae awkwardly laughed while Hyunshik stopped as he started to scan the place. He observed that the windows were covered with black plastic, as he doubted that there was something inside that shouldn't be exposed to the outside. And Hyunshik believed that Bora was inside. But then Juntae was confused and asked what he was doing, and why he wasn't going in. So Hyunshik asked if he knew about it, causing Juntae to be surprised and ask what he was talking about. Hyunshik stated that they say all the motor and sensory nerves gather at the temple, so if he gets a strong impact there, he could faint instantly. But Juntae was still confused and asked what nonsense he was talking about. But Ethan Lee stated that he knew that he was a kid and he couldn't reach his temple, but Ethan Lee knew that climbing these stairs would reach the height that he does. But then Juntae was still confused about what he was saying. Then Ethan Lee shifted his attention to a corner, causing Juntae to look at it as well. When all of a sudden, Ethan Lee smashed his phone into his head, causing him to receive massive damage and lose his balance, and Ethan Lee expected that since he had a child's body, it wouldn't work in one hit, even though he aimed it properly at his head. So he jumped and swung his arms again, aiming at Juntae again, but this time it was full force. Then a loud bang echoed in that place, and Juntae finally lost his consciousness and fell onto the ground. So Ethan Lee quickly ran towards the gate and hurriedly unlocked it, and called the attention of the police, telling them that someone had collapsed in here. Then he slammed the gate to make a noise as he kept calling the police. On the other side, the police heard the noise and wondered what that sound was. As they turned around, they saw that Ethan Lee was calling them, but they suspected that it came from there. Then Ethan Lee hurriedly ran inside, as he wished that Bora was still safe. So he immediately opened the door, and he was shocked after seeing Bora. Meanwhile, the police came to inspect, and they were surprised that there was indeed someone collapsed. So he woke Juntae up and warned him that he would be in big trouble sleeping in a place like this, but Juntae didn't respond after all. So he told his companion whether they should call an ambulance, but his companion doubted it for a second. Not long after, Ethan Lee called the police again, begging them to come inside the house, causing their attention to be shifted to him. So his companion quickly ordered him to check it out, which he agreed to. As soon as he opened the door, he was shocked to see Ethan Lee holding Bora in his arms. Then, Ethan Lee asked if they came because of a report, but before the police could speak, Ethan Lee reported to them that Juntae had kidnapped Bora, and that the man who saw them collapse outside was the kidnapper. Upon hearing it, the police were puzzled about what was going on. So, Ethan Lee explained that Juntae tied Bora's hands and feet with tape and was holding her captive as he reminded the police that all the evidence, fingerprints, and DNA are still here, and begged the police to call the forensics team for investigation. As he ordered the police to hurry, since Bora was very shocked right now and she needed to rest, and he assured that he would contact Bora's mother as well, which the police understood. On the other side, the police tried to wake Juntae again as he shook his body, when all of a sudden, Juntae's eyes opened, causing the police to be startled and lose their balance. So the police asked if he was fully awake, and Juntae nodded. But then, Ethan Lee called Juntae out and kicked his head, telling him to get up. While Juntae crumbled due to the pain, the police told Ethan Lee not to hit a person but Ethan Lee stated that he wasn't a human after all, which confused the police. So, Ethan Lee revealed that Juntae was a kidnapper worse than an animal, and ordered the police that he must arrest Juntae as a criminal caught in the act. Not long after, the ambulance and police cars had arrived at the place. The forensic and the police started the investigations, and Bora was taken care of by the paramedics. Then Bora's mom arrived as tears streamed down her face, and called her out, which Bora noticed. So Bora quickly hugs her mother as they couldn't help their feelings, while Ethan Lee looks at them with sadness on his face. A little while later, at the police department, Juntae explained that it was all a misunderstanding, that Bora wanted to see his cat. But then Sejun slammed the table and yelled that they already have the box tape he used to tie up Bora, and his fingerprints are all over her phone, as he asked where did he get the nerve to deny it. Then he revealed that they got witness testimony too, and there was no way out from the beginning, as he demanded to confess everything honestly. Upon hearing it, Juntae's face turned pale, and he clarified whether it was Ethan Lee, as he got mad cause he was the reason why he fainted. But then Sejun grabbed his sweater as he got infuriated, and asked why he was spouting lies, since the kid was barely over half of his height. So he stated that those people who touch kids are worse than bugs in this world. As Sejun moved his face closer to him, and asked what he planned to do after kidnapping Bora, and warned him that if he didn't tell him the truth, he would treat him like a bug. Meanwhile, Sejun's fellow detective was concerned that Sejun had been serious these past few days, and he agreed as he stated that even the last time with the attempted murder case, and now volunteering to take this kidnapping case as well. Then he wondered if a person could change quickly like that, but his fellow detective stated that it was all about the team leader who saved face, and it worked out well, and he agreed as long as the backlash didn't fall on them. Later that day at the hospital, Bora's mother thanks Ethan Lee for saving Bora's life, and Ethan Lee denies and explains that she must thank Bora because she bravely endured it well. Then, Ethan Lee advised her that she must only think of good thoughts from now on, and Bora thanked him. So her mom compliments Ethan Lee that he became mature while she wasn't looking, and if her mother were alive, she would be proud of him. Hearing it, Ethan Lee just smiles, overwhelmed by it. But then, Bora's mother switched the topic and asked the girl named Hygiene, as she hadn't seen her since his mom's accident. Upon hearing it, Ethan Lee was confused about who Hygiene was, and then he was stunned as he recalled something. While Bora's mom was talking, she was confused why Ethan Lee had lost his balance. She started to panic as she kept calling his name. But Ethan Lee was already on the ground. Ethan Lee was surprised as he recalled the face of Hygiene calling him.